He had no clue it was ICE. He thought he was just being stopped by police.
Now at 6, the family of a Vancouver man arrested by ICE says he's been moved from Tacoma to another detention facility in Texas. We'll have the latest on this story coming up in a live report.
And we're checking in on some of the severe flooding in Washington after the governor issued a state of emergency following this week's heavy rain. Plus,
Sloth Puppet, hi, how are you? Do you need another sidekick or the morning show?
I mean, I'm pretty good with the one I have.
oh,
But yeah, okay, I'll try someone else.
okay.
Just kidding, of course. The KGW Great Toy Drive is underway, and we've got a What to Do with China and Drew for you this morning as we do some toy shopping with money that you all donated. We're going to tell you where we did it and how much we spent at this local toy shop coming up at 6:45. Yes?
Rude.
Come on. Just joking. It's my Friday. I won't be here tomorrow, so I'm having a little fun. Can I have some fun this morning with your permission?
Good morning, and thank you for joining us here. I'm China Green.
And I'm Drew Carney. And this is Chris McGinnis.
That's like 2 strikes.
All right, guys, here we go. It's a little less crazy than it was the past few days as far as our local weather is concerned. But Chris, you're talking about maybe a ramp up here in the days to come again.
Yeah, I think next week, and we can look at that in a little bit, right? Maybe a good soaking of rain coming our way on Monday, but this morning we are generally dry and also very, very mild. Out the door, 57 degrees last check at PDX. The freezing level this morning up on the top of Mount Hood, over Mount Hood. Speaks to the lack of snow in the Cascades. All right, we are a little drippy here and there. We've got some continuous light rain through northern Clark, Cowlitz County, and towards the North Oregon coast here. We've been spared a lot of that here in Vancouver, Portland, and Point South. And I think that's kind of the trend here for the remainder of the day. I don't think we're going to see a lot of rain here in Portland, maybe 1/100 of an inch, a few light rain showers, a chance of rain showers, and very, very mild temperatures. We're talking about highs today in the upper 50s. I do have a completely dry day in my forecast tomorrow and Saturday. We'll look at that coming up in just a few minutes. First, a look at the roads with Corey.
Well, things are looking really good this morning out on the roadway. Chris, not seeing much in the way of delays. Taking you a tour of the interstates at this time. I-5 northbound at Broadway also moving along nicely. The Banfield, this is I-84 East, starting to pick up a little bit at 53rd Avenue. I-5 at Markham Bridge, this is the southbound lanes, the lower deck in particular, also starting to see more cars at this hour. And then I-5 northbound in Vancouver at SR14 in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Not many cars this morning, but as we get into the later part of the day, of course, picking up in the way of congestion, of course. Taking a look at your drive times, green across the board, headed out on I-5 north from Wilsonville Road to Markham Bridge. It'll be just over 16 minutes. China?
Thank you, Corey. In an update this morning, a Vancouver man's family who claims ICE agents ran over his foot during an arrest now says that he has been transferred to Texas.
Sunrise reporter Thomas Schultz joins us live here with more on this story. Good morning, Thomas.
Hey, good morning, guys. And yeah, last week, officers arrested 27-year-old Jose Paniagua Calderon in Vancouver. In an incident caught on video, it looks like an SUV ran over something near where Paniagua Calderon was sitting. He's since been transferred to an ICE detention facility in Texas. And a warning, some of the video you may see as part of this story could be disturbing to some viewers. Paniagua Calderon's family tells us that they believe his foot may have been run over in the incident. Initially, they thought it may be broken before he told them that while he was in pain, his foot was not broken. The Department of Homeland Security fired back with spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin saying after ICE officers applied wrist restraints, Paniagua launched into an Oscar-level performance, dramatically screaming while officers simply moved his vehicle off the roadway. Now, Paniagua Calderon has been transferred from an ICE detention facility in Tacoma to one in El Paso, Texas. His family worries the move may be retaliation after they spoke out about the arrest last week.
I told my family, and they were all so sad and mad, and they couldn't believe that they had taken him more than 1,000 miles away from us.
DHS pushed back, saying claims that transfers of detainees are being weaponized or hidden are also categorically false. All transfers are made in accordance with strict guidelines. They say detainees and attorneys are notified about transfers and directs families to the ICE detainee locator. The Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition also says that moves like this are extremely disruptive. They say these kinds of moves can also infringe on legal cases and make it impossible for families to visit their loved ones. Drew, Jenna.
All right, Thomas Schultz with the latest this morning on one of our top local stories. In other local headlines, we now know the man shot and killed at a Southeast Portland convenience store earlier this week was an employee at the store. Neighbors told us 3D's Market on 139th Avenue is family owned and it's been open for decades.
I'm just shocked because they're the nice. I mean, you always hear they're the nicest people, and they really are.
Portland police have not made any arrests in this case, and they've also not released any information on a motive.
The man charged with shooting and killing a 33-year-old man under the Burnside Bridge back in April of 2022 is expected to be sentenced today. Rizzo Lucas, who was about 18 at the time of shooting, was charged with second-degree murder and unlawful use of a weapon. Police found the victim with a gunshot wound to the neck. He was taken to the hospital where he later died. Lucas is scheduled to be sentenced at 7 o'clock this morning.
In an update this morning, the Benton County Sheriff's Office says community tips helped them identify a body that was found in the Willamette River last month. They say the body of 34-year-old Jonathan Smith from Albany was spotted floating near Hayek Park the Saturday after Thanksgiving. The Sheriff's Office says he was never reported missing. They're also thanking community members who responded and helped identify Smith after the Sheriff's Office put out these images of his tattoos. They're still asking anyone with information about his death to give them a call.
On the Oregon coast, water is still high in some spots, but it is receding. Thanks to Renee for sending this shot in from the Drift Creek, Lincoln City from yesterday. Highway 6 in Tillamook is back open as well after it looked like this yesterday. Tillamook firefighters had to rescue a handful of people yesterday, including this driver who got stuck in water that had covered the road. They're asking people to stay vigilant and not drive through any of the flooding.
We're also tracking floods and landslide conditions in northwest Washington this morning after a record rainfall in that part of the state. At least 4 inches of rain fell across the Cascade Mountains since late Tuesday. Bellingham, about 90 miles north of Seattle, saw nearly 3 inches, shattering the city's record for rain in a single day. Washington Governor Bob Ferguson declared a state of emergency, and the National Guard is activated with 100 service members already helping out.
There's at least 6 rivers in the state that could break flooding records, as well as 3 dams at risk of failing. So officials are advising about 100,000 people to evacuate certain areas of Washington state. That includes the Mount Vernon area north of Seattle. The Skagit River there is still rising, expected to go up another 14 feet before Friday. Businesses were boarding up and sandbagging last night.
There's been multiple times today that I've almost been in tears. This is really a magical community.
To the southeast of Seattle, I-90 is shut down near North Bend. It's been closed more than 9 hours because of this landslide that trapped 3 cars. And further south in Pierce County, sheriff's deputies had to go in by boat to rescue people from an RV park there. They evacuated at least 40 homes with river levels especially high in the town of Ording. Closer to our area in Lewis County, the Cowlitz River is still at what is considered major flood stage, triggering evacuations there. Some people who live on higher ground have been helping those who need the help.
It come up faster than I've ever seen water come up. There's some little kids in there that were packing stuff out to the car, and the first trip there was no water, and the second trip he stepped into the water, and then I come down in there and we loaded him out and got him out of there.
The Cowlitz River has flooded much of the Cascade Peaks RV Park near Packwood since yesterday morning.
We're also keeping track of minor flooding in southwest Washington with some issues to keep an eye on in eastern Clark County and Cowlitz County. The Lewis River is going down after it flooded yesterday and spilled over onto roads and parks, but most of the road and park closures there have been lifted. The Cowlitz River in Kelso is also back under flood stage.
Back near Seattle, community members stepped up to rescue all 120 dogs and cats from the Everett Animal Shelter. The shelter is situated near the water and faced imminent flooding due to this week's heavy rain. So on Tuesday, issued an urgent call to volunteers and foster parents to take in animals at the shelter.
Never in a million years would I have thought that we would have been able to just put the call out and that our community would help like this.
Volunteers also helped lift pet food and other supplies to higher ground. Some good news here. By Wednesday, every animal at the shelter had found a temporary home.
Actually, all of the dogs and cats got picked up. I know, isn't that wonderful?
All right, so a good ending to that story up there again near Seattle. Chris, let's talk about today's weather locally because I know you're keeping a track of a few things.
Yeah, so for starters, right, the end of our atmospheric river that's been just hammering the northwest. It's the flow here, the moisture content, and that is dropping off and it's fizzling. So that's really good news here across the entire northwest. I wanted to kind of circle back and answer Drew's earlier question about will things ramp up in our 7-day forecast, and the answer maybe yes, but real quick, I wanted to take you to Monday. There is another shot of some pretty good moisture here that hits the Oregon coast here. So in terms of when is our next round of potentially heavy rain, we're targeting Monday for that, and you'll see that reflected in our 7-day forecast. At this point, in no way does it look like the duration or the intensity of what we just had, but it will be significant rainfall nonetheless. What we have out there right now is very, very light rain, but it's been continuous here more than not across northern Clark County, Cowlitz County, Columbia County through the North Oregon Coast Range over the last 3 hours. Meanwhile, we've been spared mostly here in Portland and Vancouver and points south, and I think that trend continues throughout the day today, with the higher terrain generally getting some more rain and areas up towards, say, Kalama and Kelso and Longview and points north, right? But nonetheless, the atmosphere is still cloudy, moist, and drippy in some cases, and the temperatures are quite warm with highs today. Our high for today will probably wind up coming this morning in the upper 50s. We'll slowly dial it back into the mid 50s later today. Say hello to Marley. Marley is today's pet of the day, dressed for the occasion, just 2 weeks from Christmas, hoping for something good in his stocking. All right, if you want to get a shout out to your pet of the day at kgw.com is the email address. You do that, and we give you the shout out. Here's your 7-day forecast. I've got dry weather Friday and Saturday. Sunday's rain or showers looks generally pretty light. As we mentioned, the Monday system could be more significant. At this point, it doesn't look like anything we just went through, but it will be meaningful, significant rainfall. So we'll keep you posted on that.